Have you ever had that feeling that your prayers are just the ceiling? Or that, no matter how much you try, it seems that something is missing in your connection with God? Believe me, you are not the only one. This happens with almost everyone who takes faith seriously. Now imagine finding that there is a spiritual practice capable of drawing divine attention directly to you. I'm talking about fasting. But calm down, before you think, oh, I've heard it before. I'll tell you a secret that many Christians still ignore. There are two things you should never do when you are fasting. Curious to know what they are? And, especially, do you want to learn how to avoid these mistakes and turn your fast into a powerful spiritual tool? In this video, you will find not only the power that fasting has to bring you closer to God and accelerate your spiritual transformation, but also how to avoid those silly mistakes that completely sabotage your spiritual effort. Prepared to dive deep into this millennial practice that even Jesus adopted? So let's go. Have you ever noticed how, in the rush of everyday life, does our soul seem to be in the background? Yeah, we worry so much about feeding the body that sometimes forgets to nourish the spirit. This is exactly why fasting is not just about feeling hungry or stopping eating. It is a powerful spiritual discipline that brings us closer to God and strengthens the Christian faith, putting focus on our inner life. When you choose to put the physical food aside for a period, you make a direct invitation to a deep spiritual transformation. Fasting is not easy, I know, but that's just where the secret is. It is the moment your body complains that you find spiritual strength to seek God more intensely in prayer. As an old friend of mine already said, fasting is to transform hunger and sacrifice into intimacy and spiritual purpose. Now pay attention to an important detail. The goal is not simply to starve, but to channel your time and energy to hear the voice of God and better understand your divine purpose. Fasting brings humility, self-control, and consecration to your life, essential elements to grow in spiritual leadership and intercession. In short, my friend, when you choose fasting, is opening doors for amazing spiritual benefits that go far beyond the empty dish on the table. Fasting, although it seems like a modern subject to some, was already widely practiced in biblical times. Take a look at the Old Testament. God not only suggested, but determined that his people would fast during the Day of Atonement, known as Yom Kippur. In practice, this was not just hungry, but it was an act of deep humility and recognition of their mistakes before God. In the New Testament, who reinforced and raised this practice even more was Jesus. In Matthew 6:16-18, he gives a practical class on how to fast the correct way. Do you know that story of fasting and posting on Instagram? Yeah, Jesus has long warned that fasting is not to gain likes or compliments, but to strengthen your personal relationship with God. The Bible makes it very clear that fasting is something intimate and reserved. After all, the main objective is to achieve spiritual transformation, strengthening our spiritual discipline without ostentation. Always remember, the secret of effective fasting is in the sincerity of the heart, not in the amount of people who know you are doing. And that makes all the difference in gathering the spiritual benefits of this powerful practice. Do you know that feeling that you need to hear God clearly, but it seems that the connection is kind of weak? Believe me, you are not alone in this. Many times, our agitated routine ends up drowning the divine voice. This is exactly where fasting comes into play, as a powerful spiritual discipline to tune your ears and broaden your spiritual perception through prayer. Fasting is not just deprivation, but a conscious way to exchange physical satisfaction through God's pursuit. Want a practical tip? In place of meals, open your Bible and devote time to deep prayer. This is the ideal time to ask for divine guidance, intervention in your personal or family challenges, and strengthen your faith. After all, physical food is temporary, but spiritual support is eternal. By using this time to connect with God, you will notice a real change happening in your spiritual life. Fasting creates a sacred space where its consecration is strengthened, its humility grows, and its self-control develops. Be sure the more you invest in this practice, the more prepared you will be to achieve the divine purposes reserved especially for you. There are people who think fasting is synonymous with spiritual status, right? That thing like, I will show that I'm holy because I'm starving. But beware of this trap. In Matthew 6:16-18, Jesus makes it very clear that fasting is not to do a little show or gain applause. On the contrary, the more discreet you are, the more value will have your consecration in the eyes of God. Another common mistake is to start fasting without a clear purpose. Let's combine staying without eating just because everyone is bored. Fasting without defined spiritual purpose is just forced diet. If there is no real goal as it seeks guidance, strengthen your faith, or get closer to God, may be better to rethink before you begin. Fasting is a serious thing, my friend. It is an intimate commitment, made of open heart and true intention. Before you start, set aside time to reflect and clearly define what you want to reach spiritually. This will ensure that your fast is a transformative experience, not just something done by obligation or appearance. After all, God values sincerity, and it is in it that the secret of spiritual strength is. You may have heard that fasting is something between you and God, and that's true. Private fasting is that intimate moment when you withdraw to seek God in prayer without boasting. It is in this discreet and personal scenario that many people experience an intense spiritual transformation, clearly feeling the divine presence. But did you know that there is also collective fasting? For it is, on some special occasions, such as challenges or crises in the church, the pastor or spiritual leadership calls a general fast. It is the moment when everyone unites in the same spiritual purpose, strengthening faith and intensifying prayers for specific causes, all go similar to what we see in the book of Esther or Ezra. Interestingly, both private and collective fasting has its value and effectiveness. While the private reinforces his personal spiritual discipline, corporate fasting strengthens unity and intercession within the Christian community. So, regardless of the format, the important thing is the intention of the heart and the sincere search for the divine purpose. After all, whether in groups or alone, God always responds to those who really seek Him. Whenever someone mentions fasting, the first thing that comes to mind is that classic concern: will I be able to stand without eating? If you have thought about it, relax, it's not just you. Many people feel anxiety about the hunger or doubt of their own physical resistance. But that is exactly where faith comes in. Fasting does not depend only on your physical strength, but on the confidence that God is by your side. Another common point is the fear of what others will think. Who has never heard something like, "You are exaggerating," or "This makes no sense"? Well, fasting can still cause strangeness, especially if your social circle does not share the same Christian faith. But remember, you are not fasting to please people, but to connect deeply with God and achieve the spiritual benefits of this practice. The truth is that God recognizes and values the sincere effort of those who fast with humility and spiritual purpose. Therefore, instead of focusing on the hunger or opinion of others, keep your eyes on the spiritual transformation that this period can bring. And always remember, if you hit that doubt or discouragement, pray and ask the Lord for strength. It always supports those who are determined to pursue it with all their hearts. The Bible is full of fascinating fasting stories, showing how this spiritual discipline can actually move heavens and earth. Just take a look at Ezra. For example, he and 4,000 more people fast and prayed to ask for protection during a dangerous journey. Result? God responded with divine intervention, clearly demonstrating that fasting combined with prayer has extraordinary power. Another powerful example is that of Queen Esther, who called a 3-day collective fast to intercede for the Jewish people. It was a difficult situation of those that seem impossible, but the combination of fasting, prayer, and faith brought miraculous liberation. Esther proved that when we seek divine purpose with humility and courage, the supernatural can manifest in amazing ways. But perhaps the most striking example is Jesus himself. Before starting his ministry here on earth, Jesus spent 40 days in absolute fasting in the desert. Of course, you don't have to start with something so radical, but the powerful lesson is Jesus valued fasting as a way to strengthen your connection with God, preparing yourself spiritually for your mission. If he did this, he can be sure that fasting will also make a big difference in his spiritual walk. If you have never practiced fasting before, maybe you are thinking something like, "Is it starting to be a month just on the water?" Calm down. No need to start by radicalizing like this. The truth is that, as in everything in life, the secret to a solid spiritual journey is to start small. You can, for example, choose to jump only one meal and dedicate this time to praying or reading the Bible. Think about it: how to go to the spiritual academy. No one starts raising the biggest weight on the first day, right? In fasting, it is also like this: go slow, know the limits of your body and mind, but always focusing on spiritual growth. Over time, you will realize that what seemed impossible at first becomes natural, thanks to the spiritual discipline you developed. The great trick here is the consistency and sincerity of the heart. It's no use doing a long fast once and never. Better to make small fasts regularly, growing slowly, strengthening your faith, and building a healthy spiritual routine. Oh, and do not forget, always establish a clear purpose for your fast, because that's what will make sense of your walk and bring the spiritual benefits you seek. When someone mentions fasting, the first image that comes to mind is usually radical, like spending days without even a drop of water, right? Well, that type does exist and is called absolute fast. The Apostle Paul, for example, spent 3 days in absolute fasting after his transformative encounter with Jesus. But beware, this type of fasting should be done very carefully, always with proper guidance and spiritual preparation. If you found the absolute too heavy, relax. Normal fasting can be more your beach. In it, you do not consume solid foods, but continue to drink liquids such as water, tea, or natural juices. This is a great start to those who are taking their first steps in fasting, providing balance between physical sacrifice and spiritual strengthening. Now, if you think, I can't give up the food totally, but I still want to get closer to God, the perfect solution is partial fast, known as Daniel's fast. In it, you eliminate specific foods such as meat, sweet, or processed, focusing on simpler and more natural meals. In addition to the spiritual benefits, this modality also helps to take care of the body, or be fasting with a healthy bonus. Already realize that it is much easier to follow firm in a commitment when we have someone to encourage, right? With fasting, it works just like that. Fasting along with a friend, family member, or even a church group can be a great way to keep the mood high. After all, when someone is together on the walk, it is harder to give up or discouraged. Also, having a fasting partner creates that healthy commitment that drives your spiritual discipline. Have you ever thought about matching a friend of praying together during the periods fasting? Or maybe make a group on WhatsApp to exchange experiences, share excerpts from the Bible, and encourage each other? I guarantee this will make the experience much more enriching and pleasant. Oh, and of course, fasting in partnership brings that good deal of extra motivation to difficult times. When you hit that desire to give up, your partner will remind you of the spiritual purpose of fasting and how much God honors this sincere effort. And do you want to know? Still roll that healthy, friendly pressure so you don't give up before the agreed time until no one wants to be the first to pierce, right? Have you started any super excited activity and halfway forgot why you were doing that? With fasting is no different. It's easy to start enthusiastically, but if you are not clear your spiritual purpose, the risk of giving up increases a lot. Therefore, a great strategy is to write down a paper or that cell phone block the specific reasons that led you to seek God through fasting. Clearly put what your intentions are. Are you seeking divine guidance to make an important decision? Need to strengthen your faith or improve your spiritual leadership? Want more spiritual strength to intercede for someone you love? Whatever your reason, put it on paper. Brings clarity and focus, preventing you from losing your way when your stomach starts complaining. Also, planning in advance your prayer time and Bible reading during fasting. Avoid those classic situations where, instead of praying, you end up watching YouTube videos about food recipes. It's not easy to resist. Remember that fasting is a journey that requires sacrifice, but above all, divine purpose. With planning and clarity, you guarantee a profound experience of consecration and spiritual transformation. So, ready to experience the transforming power of fasting in your own life? You have already understood how this practice can boost your spiritual walk, broaden your faith, and strengthen your relationship with God. That now is it time to reflect what kind of fast you feel that God is calling you to practice right now. What spiritual purpose do you intend to achieve with this journey? Do not forget, the secret is not just to start, but to stay firm, motivated, and with a heart turned to what really matters. That I believe you are ready to live this experience of deep spiritual transformation. So take the first step, clearly define your intentions, find partners that can support you, and dedicate this special time to prayer, consecration, and reading of the Bible. So, did you like these practical tips? So you already take the opportunity to subscribe to the channel and activate notifications, so you do not lose any content that will further strengthen your faith and lead you to your divine purpose that we are together on this walk towards spiritual growth.